Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today I'll be talking about this kind of like urban legend in a sense that Star Trek films, the odd ones are horrible and the even ones are good. Now, I've been a Star Trek fan as far back as I can remember. My mother placed me on the couch years ago and I saw someone say, "To boldly go where no man has gone before," and went, whoosh, there's a Starship Enterprise flying by, and I went, ooh, I'm in. And I've been in ever since. Love this series. I like the idea that it talks about a positive future as opposed to the dystopian, grim futures that we see in most other science fiction movies. Um, the show had been off for almost about a decade. People have been writing in, trying to bring it back and trying and trying and trying. But then stuff like Close Encounters and Star Trek really did great box office numbers, and Paramount decided, why put it on TV when we can make a lot of money in the box office, in the theaters? So 1979 saw the release of Star Trek: The Motion Picture. This is basically an alien entity is coming towards Earth, powered by this creature. We think it's a creature at the time called V'ger, who is looking for its creator. So Admiral Kirk is asked to reinstate the crew of the Enterprise since they have the most experience in these kind of hostile environments that happen in their 5 year mission. This is the best crew to combat this thing and figure out what's going on. The fans rejoice. We got the original crew back. It took 10 years, but it's done. But this movie was called Star Trek: The Motionless Picture, Star Trek: The Boring Picture. It's a lot of talking, a lot of science based. I think I would say science based, less action, much less action than most people were hoping for, or which the trailers indicated. So a lot of people were disappointed. I know I was 79. I was 9 years old. I thought this was a long movie at the time. But watching it again after years and years later, where they kind of invest a lot of money to fix up the special effects, I really see how good this movie is. Is it perfect? No. But there's moments of brilliance on here. There's stunning visuals, and Jerry Goldsmith's score is phenomenal. You need to watch it once. And if you haven't, because you heard bad things about it, it's not as bad as people say. And I'll leave it at that. It's the most Trek like of all the Star Trek movies. It's what Star Trek should be. And this is what it is. Of course, they made enough money to garner a sequel, and they bring in Nicholas Meyer to direct the sequel. Takes an old character from the series, Khan, played by Ricardo Montalban, brings him back in here, where he seeks revenge on Captain Kirk. Action packed. It had the Star Trek stuff where Kirk and Spock have to use their mind to outwit their guy, but it comes at a cost, and the cost is the damaged Enterprise, and of course, Spock gives up his life to save the crew at the end. So Spock dies at the end of Star Trek 2. Everybody lost their mind. I remember everybody lost their mind. This is one of those times that you just heard gasps in the theater. People were weeping. It was unbelievable. I haven't seen that too many times in my life in the theater. But people weeping for a character. That's how strong these characters are. But of course, Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. Everybody's calm again because we know he's on Genesis, and Genesis brings dead things to life, kind of thing, right? So Kirk goes against the Federation in order to get Spock's body on Genesis to reemerge it with his soul that's been placed in Dr. McCoy. I think it initially seemed a disappointment because Star Trek 2 was so big. It came out of left field. No one thought it's going to be this good, especially after the first one was deemed kind of a disappointment in the beginning. This Star Trek 2 just destroyed the odds. One of the greatest sequels in a movie franchise. It was it. So was the third one going to suffer? For sure. Because it's not as action packed as well. It's a different kind of adventure. It's the human adventure. It's them dealing first off with they think they lost their family member Spock, and now suddenly there's a chance to bring him back, and the Federation is saying no to these guys after all they've done. They're gonna go and they're gonna do it regardless. They're gonna risk their careers to do this for not just a crew member, but for family. And it's that human adventure that compels me to really love this um, film. The third one, I think, destroys that odd numbered that it's no good. This is a good movie. And this is another one that no other film looks like this one. This is a very unique looking Leonard Nimoy behind the lens here, behind the camera, filming it. Fantastic looking. I enjoyed this movie. It's still one of my favorites today. And I think it destroys this odd number is a sucky Star Trek film. Star Trek 3 is in no way a bad movie. It's not a phenomenal movie, but it's not bad. It is a solid Star Trek movie. Next up, Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, where Kirk and the crew have to travel back to the 80s San Francisco in order to pick up some humpback whales in order for it to communicate with an alien entity. Much more comedic, less sci-fi, based on Earth. A little different, a detour from what we expected or what I expected it to be after Star Trek 3. I said, where we're going to go from here? And I remember it initially for me, I didn't like this movie too much. I said, Star Trek is a comedy? Watching it now, I thoroughly enjoy it. I see what they did with it, and it is an even number, and it's a great one. Probably a little stronger than Star Trek, the motion picture in a sense. But for me, I still like Star Trek 3 better. Star Trek 5, The Final Frontier. This is where Spock's half brother hijacks the Enterprise in order to search for God. This is considered one of the worst of the bunch. It didn't work out for whatever reason. I'm not sure. There are moments. I like some of the campfire scenes. It shows them away from work per se and showing that love that they have for each other. I thought that was great. Overall, something got lost somewhere. Something went wrong. Not many people like this movie. This is one of the few that I very rarely go back to. Maybe every 4 or 5 years I'll revisit this thing, and it doesn't get any better for me. But it's a Star Trek movie, and I'll watch it. Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. Nicholas Meyer returns after the great job he did on Star Trek 2 in order to save this franchise again because of the fiasco of The Final Frontier. The Undiscovered Country is basically Klingons. Their moon has destroyed. They're going to die. They want to make peace with the Federation. The Enterprise has been there to pick up some of the big wigs of the Klingon civilization. Of course, nothing goes as planned, and Kirk and McCoy are framed for murder. And of course, this can cause an interstellar war between the Federation and the Klingon Empire. Of course, they have to figure out who did it, solve it, and save the day. More of a political thriller than an action adventure, which I enjoyed. It was again a different element. Nicholas Meyer really did a great job, twisting, playing around with the formula, but making it an intriguing movie and a great send-off for the original crew. Then, of course, the Next Generation. They decided they're going to continue with the movies, and the first one is Generations. So this is where Kirk and Picard meet. They have to stop this scientist from getting to the Nexus, using this Nexus, which can make him, go through time. And he wants to save his family. It's a decent entry. I think, again, I think this movie was rushed in order to get to the theaters. I think I remember somebody said that between All Good Things, the ending of the Next Generation series, and this movie, I think they had like a week apart, and they started filming it. There was not enough time to write, I think, a solid script. There's something there. There is a great movie, but it becomes a mid-tier Star Trek movie, in my opinion. And again, when they kill Kirk, him to say that was fun. Whoever wrote that, hope you never work in Star Trek again, because that was horrible. Horrible, 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 horrible. Next, of course, we got the even number. We got Star Trek First Contact. This is where the Borg they go back in time in order to stop mankind from having first contact. Action-packed, touching. Picard has to go through his trauma of being a Borg once. That has everything you want in a Star Trek movie. This is probably the best one of the Next Generation. and for good reason. It's just it knocks it out of the park. Jonathan Frakes behind the camera. You know, he's no slouch. He's been doing it a long time, and he delivered the goods on this. This was a really good movie. Still one of my favorites, and I will always go back to it. And every time I see it, there's something more that I like. Then we have Insurrection of '98. Um, Kind of Picard goes against the Federation to help this alien race, a peaceful alien race. So becomes the Enterprise becomes a symbol of hope. It's a good movie, but it's more of a. I took it as a. This should have been an episode on the TV series, not a movie. It's good. It's just after First Contact. This is a kind of a little letdown. I was very let down. So the next one technically should be the savior. Nemesis 2002. This is where they find out there is a clone of Picard, and they got to go meet him and try to stop him. He's wants to wreak havoc. I think the director got on board, didn't realize what Star Trek was. I mean, as if you're watching it as strictly an action movie, it's okay. If you're watching it as a Star Trek movie, you go, this guy didn't get the assignment. The stuff with Troy is questionable. It's kind of like a semi-rape scene in her mind. That was a little. It's disturbing. No matter how many times. I don't like that scene. I don't know why they put it in there. Really bad. Of course, Data gives himself up like Spock saved him. It ended the Next Generation films on a low note, and it's unfortunate. There was something there. There's some parts I really like. Like I said, if you watch it as an action movie, sci-fi, it's okay. If you watch it as a full-fledged Star Trek movie, you're gonna be disappointed. And then it took a long time, 7 years, to get a new Star Trek movie. And basically, J.J. Abrams decides he's going to reboot it, change the timeline with these Romulans that change the timeline. So now it's the Kelvin timeline, and we get to see the new beginnings of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. For me, the cast, top notch. I love this one. This is one of the few Star Trek movies, like the Wrath of Khan, where I went the next day to the theaters. I saw this the next day again. As for entertainment, you can. I know a lot of people knock this Kelvin timeline, but for entertainment, the Star Trek 2009 movie is entertaining as all heck and a fun time to have in the theater. Just when you thought Star Trek was dead, because remember, Enterprise got canceled, Nemesis didn't do well. I said, Star Trek is finished. This comes out, and I said, you know what? I have hope in this franchise again. This gave me hope. So, next up, Into Darkness should be another one. It should be a mega super movie. Basically, it's redoing the Wrath of Khan with Cumberbatch. And I know for many months before the movie came out, we had heard that it's going to be a Wrath of Khan. He's Khan, and he said no, no, no. But the way it looked, you kind of saw this was coming. I enjoy this movie. Too many throwbacks for me. Khan, and then the death scene. It's Kirk instead of Spock. You really try. I think they tried too hard to invoke the feelings of the Wrath of Khan, and it didn't work. It just didn't work. Star Trek Beyond, the last one with this Chris Pine crew, which by this point I think they nailed their characters. This one I liked a lot. Beyond was really didn't do as well box office wise, so now we haven't had a new movie from them, and now we hear there's not going to be. They're just going to reboot and do something else. You had Idris Elba on here, played the villain. So they're basically stranded on a planet with this villain played by Elba, who was a Starfleet officer and wants to go back and destroy the Federation because he felt he got left behind, and the Federation is not what it's cracked up to be. I enjoyed this movie. I think it's a great Star Trek movie, and I stand by this one. I wish they would have done another one, because I think with this one they kind of course corrected everything, and I think the fourth one would have been out of this world and would have really, because I think everybody, Carl Urban As McCoy, he knocked it out of the park. Not him as McCoy alone is worth the price of admission. He nailed that character. So the odds are bad. Nah, not really. There's some. I mean, Nemesis kind of puts that legend to rest because technically it should have been a great movie and it's not. Kind of the next generation kind of lost footing or lost that momentum. Um, the Pine ones are decent. They're entertainment. He's okay. The first one, who could forget all those flares? That was a pain in my tuchus. But hey, overall, I'm going to say I'm going to disagree with the odd numbers being horrible. I still say Star Trek 3 is great. Um, I think it's a solid movie. I think Star Trek the Motion Picture is a solid movie. So I think that legend or that mythos, or whatever you want to call it, of the odd numbers being horrible, I think is a little over exaggerated. There's some misses in here, but every franchise has some. But that's my take on it. I think it's a lot better than most people give it credit for. But you let me know what you think. Do you think the odd ones were bad and the even ones were good? Love to hear from you. Share your thoughts with me. Tell me which ones are your favorite movies from this franchise. Let's compare notes. And this is Steven from the Roundtable with my thoughts on the even and odd Star Trek movies. And I'll be seeing you soon, guys.